Tales from the Whistling Pixie, the Silver Sword of Haverl. Fallon looked up at the morning sun. Still plenty of day left to get started on the road. He waved to the children as he passed out of the village and glanced back. Brom was keeping close pace with him, despite his being on horseback. "So, Brom, tell me more about yourself," he said over his shoulder. The big man quickened his step until he was walking right alongside the half-elf. The two of them nearly eye to eye, with Fallon in the saddle. "Well, not much to tell. I was born in the village and has been there ever since. This be the first time me be leaving, and to be honest, don't be knowing if I'm afraid or excited." Fallon smiled. He had never felt that feeling. From the time he was born, he had been on the road, and the idea of leaving somewhere for the first time wasn't something he could reach back and find. He turned it over for a moment. Would he rather have routes to miss or adventure around every corner? A philosophical question for another time. "Really? First time, eh?" He turned to Brom with a grin. "Well, you are in for a treat, my large friend. Krimlorik is not the most expansive city I've been in, but is still a great deal bigger than the village we just left." Brom looked over at him with a wide grin. "That's what's got me excited. I can't even imagine what it'd be looking like, a place bigger than my home." He shivered happily, getting chills just thinking about it. Fallon smiled. "Well, my friend, there is the city to see and so much more. Adventure, travel, and more exciting things than you can count." He paused, glancing over. "Speaking of exciting, did you really kill a wolf with your bare hands?" Brom's excited grin shifted into one of quiet pride. "Yup. Was out looking for killing for me ma. Bent over to pick up a branch when the beast jumped me. Got a good bite me shoulder and ripped out a chunk." He pulled his shirt off his shoulder and leaned toward Fallon, showing a nasty scar. "Well, me wasn't gonna stand for that. Threw him off, but he wasn't gonna stand for that either. He jumped at me again, caught him by the neck, and just held on. Squeezed until he stopped moving." Fallon pursed his lips and nodded slowly. Quite the tale, and quite the feat. The big man's shoulders slumped as he looked ahead. "Me ma didn't think so. She was mad that me passed out when we got back home, and even madder that me came back empty-handed, and that she had to use one of her good sheets to bind the bite." He went quiet for a long while, his mind drifting back to some place of old discomfort. Fallon recognized the look and gave him his space as they continued down the road. They traveled in silence for a long while, Brom's eyes moving over everything, the tree line, the fields, the sky, taking it all in like a man seeing the world for the first time, which he was. Fallon had his map and a small journal open, jotting down a few notes on where he thought Greg might be. Brom finally broke the silence. "Travelers," he said, pointing ahead. Fallon looked up from his journal and could see a horse and cart sitting in the middle of the road. He closed the book and tucked it away. As they drew closer, he could make out two men standing beside a cart, heavily loaded with cargo strapped beneath a waxed canvas cover. which explained why it leaned so severely to the side. He didn't like the look of the cart, but he liked the look of the men even less. "Come on," he said quietly to Brom, guiding his pony off the road. "Let's give them some space." As they began to pass, the two men stood from where they had been crouched, trying to wrestle a wheel back onto the cart. They eyed the pair as they moved by. Brom took a few easy strides toward them. "Need help?" he asked. The two men's hands went to the long daggers at their hips before relaxing at the plainness of the question. "Brom!" Fallon said sharply. Brom looked back at him with a wide, guileless smile. "It'll only take a minute." The large man walked over, put his back against the cart, reached down, and lifted the heavily laden vehicle off the ground with a grunt of effort. The two men worked quickly, setting the wheel and driving the pin back home. Once it was secure, Brom slowly lowered the cart back down. The two men slapped him on the shoulder. "Thank you, friend. Don't know what we would have done if you hadn't happened by." Fallon shook his head slowly. He was going to have to watch out for the big man. He had too big a heart for the wider world. The two men offered Brom coin for his trouble, but he waved it off. So instead, they broke into one of their crates and pulled out a wool cloak. "We insist," one said when Brom shook his head at that too. "It may not cover you completely, but it's better than nothing." Brom finally accepted, setting down his pack and wrapping the cloak around his shoulders. It fully enveloped him. He smiled at that, and the two men nodded their approval. "That will come in handy," Fallon said with a bow to the men. "Thank you, sirs." "No," one of them said. "Our thanks are to you." Brom picked up his pack gently, but before he could sling it over his shoulder, it made a sound it should not have made. The big man clutched it quickly to his chest and looked over at the half-elf to see if he had heard. Fallon's raised eyebrows told him everything. "Brom?" he said quizzically. Brom's shoulders slumped. He set down the pack, reached inside, and pulled out a small, green-eyed black cat. Holding the animal close to his chest. "Couldn't just leave him," he said quietly. The two men burst out laughing. Fallon just shook his head. "Are you kidding me?" He pointed a scolding finger at the big man. "Know this. It's eating your share of the food." The slight smile at the corner of his mouth took away most of the bite. The next few days were much the same as the first. The two of them trading stories, listening and learning, getting to know each other. Fallon learned that the cat's name was Biscuit, so named because it liked kneading Brom's belly. The days passed quickly and quietly, and they soon found themselves riding alongside Deep Lake. Brom's eyes went wide. He had never seen so much water or anything so vast. But they grew even wider when the walls of Crimloric finally rose into view. He stared in open-mouthed awe at all of it. Fallon smiled, watching him take it in. "Wait until I take you to Toralise," he said. Brom's smile widened at the thought. "How big?" he asked, looking over at his companion. Fallon smiled a traitorous smile. "Much bigger, my friend. Much bigger." He clicked his tongue and guided his pony towards the city gates, feeling very much like what he was, a bard.